Hi everyone, Claudia here. Before I talk about my thoughts behind this painting, let me first tell you what I'm doing here. I used transfer paper instead of my light pad to transfer my sketch to my watercolor paper because I had kept the paper attached to the pad for a change. For that, I printed my digital sketch onto copy paper in a light red color so that I could see which lines I had already traced. Instead of buying transfer paper, you can easily make it yourself by just rubbing a soft pencil onto a piece of paper. Here's a quick look at my digital mock-up before I get to the paints I planned on using, which were Schmincke Horadam's French Ultramarine, Perylene Violet, and Potter's Pink. And by Sennelier, Indanthrene Blue, Yellow Lake, and Green Earth. I also grabbed Lemon Yellow by Mijello Mission Gold, Buff Titanium and Moon Glow, both by Daniel Smith, as well as this old half pan of Schmincke's English Venetian Red. The first 6 paints are all new in my collection, which is why I wanted to use them all at once, and the others are colors I've already owned for quite some time but rarely use. And I did use all of them here with the exception of the Moon Glow, but I try to focus on my new paints. As such, the lemon yellow's almost exclusive appearance is in the left upper part of the background, and as you can see, I quickly switched to the yellow lake. The yellow lake and the French ultramarine mixed together made for a beautiful vibrant green with strong granulation, which was my main excuse for buying the French ultramarine. Even though I already own an ultramarine, that one doesn't granulate as much, which is enough reason for me to have and use two. And of course I also need a smooth deep blue, hence the Indanthrene Blue. In case you don't know yet, hi, my name is Claudia and I have a weakness for blue paints. The Potter's Pink and Green Earth functioned as bases for the skin and hair respectively. Here's a glimpse of how I mixed the brown. The very first mix had the English Venetian Red in it, but this one is just the Perylene Violet, Yellow Lake and one of the blues. I think it was the French Ultramarine, but I honestly don't know anymore. The result was a beautiful, rich and warm brown. In retrospect, I should have put the palettes that I was actually using next to my painting so that you could actually see more of what I was doing, but I only realized my mistake while editing this footage, so sorry for that. There's one short moment where I accidentally added a bit of quinacridone purple that wasn't part of my pre-selected palette because it was still on one of the ceramic palettes I was using. But apart from that, I mostly stuck to my new colors and was pleased to see how well they work together, considering I didn't buy them to build a working limited palette. I'm, however, also not surprised that I could create a nice range of colors with them. After all, I did have a yellow, a red and even 2 blues, although none of them are perfect primary shades. So with the Yellow Lake, the Perylene Violet and either the French Ultramarine or the Indanthrene Blue alone, you can already do a lot. potter's pink and the green earth I bought to mix in with other paints to add granulation and for accents, because they're pretty light overall and don't have a strong tinting strength, so the granulation is the thing that stands out the most in mixes. But I think I would also like to use them on their own, even though they're rather subtle, because I love their tones so much. The potter's pink makes for a nice base for light skin if you don't mind the texture. Smooth paints are usually recommended for skin, even though skin naturally has texture, but the heavy granulation of the potter's pink can be a bit too much. In combination with the Perylene Violet though, which is very similar in tone but deeper, the skin ended up a bit too purple-ish to look human. Not that that mattered here, because I wasn't painting a human. They're a bit hard to work with, and they're notorious for that, at least the potter's pink is. Green earth shades can be made with a variety of pigments, so that doesn't necessarily apply to all green earths. But in this case, both aren't the easiest to re-wet, which I knew about before buying, although Schmincke's potter's pink is supposed to be easier to work with compared to other brands. And to be honest, I found neither of the two frustrating to work with. Just wet them beforehand so that the paint can soften ahead of time and you're good to go. I usually spray some water onto my palette anyway before I start painting. In fact, I did not like them that much straight out of the tube, because they have a weird kind of slimy texture and go on a bit uneven if you try to use them with little water. Oh, I forgot to mention the buff titanium. This one went into the mushrooms on her neck and shoulder, mostly as a base. By the way, I did originally film a mini haul unboxing video about these paints, but I didn't like the footage, so I skipped that and went straight to this Dryad piece. The paper I'm using here was also part of that recent-ish purchase, which is the Hahnemühle Expression 100% cotton watercolor paper. I wanted to try it not only because it's relatively affordable for quality cotton paper, at least here in Germany. I don't know if Hahnemühle paper is significantly more expensive in other parts of the world, but also because I only had hot press paper and this is cold press. I don't know if you can even get it in hot press, but this doesn't have a strong texture if that's an issue for you. So far I really like painting on it, but I also didn't put it under much stress yet. I haven't done much lifting here, so I can't say much about that, but I have a feeling you can't do extreme lifting on it, because I thought layering worked really nicely. And usually these techniques cancel each other out. If you can easily lift almost any paint from the paper, layering is a problem, because you will almost always disturb what's already dried on the paper. Or you can put a ton of layers on top of each other, but you can't lift well because the paper grabs onto the paint and won't let go. Most papers fall on a spectrum somewhere in between these extremes, and I personally prefer to be able to layer well with moderate lifting, because I'm bad at decision making and have to be able to go over everything 100 times without completely destroying what I've already done. I also haven't used any masking fluid with this paper, but I don't see why there should be any problems. If so, they would be with the fluid itself, I believe. I haven't said anything about the actual subject of the painting yet, and there actually isn't all that much to say. I had a similar image in mind, but with lots of lace around a face in profile. After seeing other artists paint mushrooms, I strangely got inspired by it. I can't say I have a deeper connection to fungi, except that I enjoy eating them occasionally, but I am not someone who goes out into the forest and is brave enough to collect mushrooms myself. But I like the idea of mushrooms being like natural frills or lace instead of fabric, and that led to this forest creature. Call her a Dryad if you will, that is partially covered in bark and has, like actual trees, fungi growing on her body. I could have pushed the concept further, but as I said, this was primarily meant to be a test piece for my new art supplies and therefore didn't want to spend too much time brainstorming. I refined everything with colored pencils, and I was particularly intent on emphasizing the lovely glow around the ends of her hair. I also felt the need to make the shapes of the mushrooms clearer, which was easier done with the pencils than with the water. The final touches were done with white gouache. I added a couple of highlights, hair strands, and used the white to define the mushrooms even more. And I think that really helped to bring out their shapes. I also sprinkled some of the white gouache onto the background for that little bit of extra something, and with that, this painting was done. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be delighted if you could give it a thumbs up, leave a comment or subscribe to my channel. Until next time, bye!